Number 1.
Cassas was last seen in Boca Raton, Florida on December 27, 1994. He told his wife of 7 years he needed to handle some quick business at the airport and she offered to go along with him, but he said no. Cassas had gotten a letter saying he needed to update his flying record in order to keep his commercial flying license current, and he thought he had to just change something in the computer at the airport and would be back soon. In fact, he had to make a flight in order to carry passengers. Every pilot was required to complete 3 takeoffs and 3 landings every 90 days. Cassas rented a brown single-engine 1978 Piper Warrior airplane with light gold trim from Boca Aviation, paying $75 for an hour. He indicated he was going to fly locally and practice touch-and-go landings. He left the ground at 1:35 p.m. He didn't file a flight plan. It wasn't required for flights within a 50-mile radius. He also didn't bring along emergency equipment such as flares, life jackets or rafts. Cassas never returned home and has never been heard from again. The airplane had enough fuel to last about 4 hours flying at 138 miles per hour. The emergency locating transmitter inside can be turned on manually or go off automatically at impact. Searchers didn't detect any signals. An extensive search of the ocean turned up no indication of Cassas or the plane. Cassas and his wife had moved to Boca Raton from the city of Rouen in France 4 years before his disappearance. He had held a pilot's license in France and had been flying for at least 7 years, and he was trying to find a job as a commercial pilot or a flight instructor when he disappeared. His body has never been found.
Number 2.
Action was last seen leaving the Ramada Inn Lounge on US 19 North and State Route 60 in Clearwater at 11:30 p.m. on May 26, 1978. She had moved in with her parents 6 weeks before her disappearance after she filed for divorce and was forced to drop out of Stetson University due to an illness. She had recently taken a job at the Kapok Tree Inn. She had just gotten her paycheck and had gone out to the Ramada Inn Lounge that night after work to celebrate with friends. After about half an hour in the lounge, during which time she had half a drink, Action said she was going to the bathroom and would return in a few minutes. She took her purse with her. The employees didn't notice anything amiss at the time. Action never returned to her friends, never came home and has never been heard from again. Her parents stated they did not attempt to control her life, but she was always good about keeping them informed where she was and what she was doing. Her parents reported her missing the day after she was last seen. 4 days after Action's disappearance, her car, a white 2-door 1969 Chevrolet Malibu, turned up abandoned on US 19 in Tarpon Springs, Florida. She had been raised in that city and graduated from Tarpon Springs High School. Her purse was not inside the vehicle when it was found. A substantial amount of typo blood was splattered inside the vehicle, on the front seat, floorboard and keys. There was enough blood to indicate someone had sustained a severe, possibly fatal, injury. Authorities couldn't determine whether it was Action's blood, although it was her type. Her shoes were also inside the car, but there was no indication of her whereabouts at the scene. Action is considered to be missing under suspicious circumstances, and foul play is suspected in her case, which remains unsolved.
Number 3.
Aguiar was last seen in Bonita Springs, Florida on August 31, 2008. He went boating off Key West that day. At 2:30 p.m. he sent a text message to a family friend saying he was going back to shore. He never arrived. He left his truck and trailer parked at the marina at John Penncamp Coral Reef State Park in Key Largo, Florida. Hurricane Ike was passing nearby on the day of Aguiar's disappearance and the marina he'd launched from was evacuated. Aguiar's boat, a 17-foot single-engine sailfish with a center console and awning, was recovered 2 weeks after his disappearance, overturned in a commercial fishing area more than 60 miles west of Key Largo and 10 miles south of Pine Key. The boat was in good condition, and police believe it capsized in the rough weather. There was no sign of Aguiar at the scene. The week before his disappearance, Aguiar's wife said she was filing for divorce. He took 3 days vacation time from work afterwards. He was scheduled to return to his job on September 1, but did not. His co-workers reported him missing on September 2. Aguiar lived on Jarrow Road in Bonita Springs, Florida at the time of his disappearance, and that city's police are investigating his case. He worked as an alarm technician. His case remains unsolved, but he is presumed to have drowned.
Number 4.
Jarkias's parents were both in jail in October 2001 and he was being looked after by a babysitter, Gwendolyn Brown. Brown told police that he was abducted by 3 unidentified men during an early morning robbery of her home near Southwest 296th Street and 158th Avenue in Miami, Florida on October 18, 2001. The robbery, she said, took place while she walking her teenage daughter to the bus stop. Upon her return home, Brown was confronted by the 3 armed suspects, and she and her live-in boyfriend, Jeffrey Cochran, were bound with duct tape while the robbers demanded money. Brown and Cochran later heard a single gunshot. When they were able to free themselves, the house had been ransacked and jarkias and several items were missing. The baby has never been seen again. Composite sketches of the 3 abductors are posted with this case summary. They should all be considered armed and dangerous. A blood-stained mattress and blood-soaked sheets was found in the home after Jarkias's abduction. There were bloodstains in other areas of the house as well. The blood was Jarkias's. Investigators believe he may have been severely injured or killed. Investigators have publicly expressed skepticism of Brown and Cochran's account. They did not call police for 2 hours after Jarkias's alleged abduction. They stated it took that long to get themselves free. Several grams of cocaine were found in the residence after Jarkias's presumed abduction, and Brown and Cochran were both arrested on drug charges. Cochran has an extensive criminal history. Jarkias's mother states she believes she couple's story, however, she thinks someone took Jarkias and is looking after him. Jarkias has never been heard from again, and his abductors have not been identified. The child's case remains unsolved.
Number 5.
Aguiar was last seen in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at sunset on June 19, 2012. Home surveillance video showed him leaving his private dock on Southeast 10th Street alone, aboard his 30-foot Jupiter Center console boat, the TT Zion. A neighbor saw the boat speeding and leaving a large wake in the canals. Aguiar passed through Port Everglades in 4- and 5-foot swells, jumping waves and moving quickly. No one was apparently following him. Boating conditions that night were bad with thunderstorms in the area and 20-mile-per-hour winds, and there was a small craft advisory in effect. Aguiar traveled north along the coast of Fort Lauderdale and, about 4 miles offshore, began having trouble steering. The tie rod that enabled his boat's twin outboard engines to work together was broken. According to data retrieved later from the GPS and engines, the TT Zion sped up and slowed down several times while its starboard engine was out of control, and both engines suddenly stopped running at 7:54 p.m. About 6 hours later, the unoccupied boat washed ashore on the beach near the elbow room bar. The navigation lights were on, the keys were in the ignition, and the throttle controls were in the forward position, but the engines weren't operating. Aguiar's wallet, cellular phone and some clothes were aboard. A 2-day search by the Coast Guard, covering an area of the size of Rhode Island, turned up no sign of Aguiar. If he accidentally fell overboard, his body was probably pulled north by the ocean current, while the easterly winds pushed the boat towards the coastline. Aguiar was born in Brazil and moved to Florida as a young child. He and his wife had 4 children. He left behind a $100 million estate. He had made a fortune in oil and gas. He was a practicing Jew with a Jewish mother and a Christian father, and split his time living between the United States and Israel. He was declared legally dead in January 2015 at the request of his wife and mother-in-law. The petition said his death was an accidental drowning. His body has never been found.
Number 6.
Teresa was dropped off at the now-defunct Marathon movie theater in Marathon, Florida on August 20, 1974, with her friend Cynthia Gooding. They planned to hitchhike to a party that day. Neither of the girls has been seen again. Cynthia had a history of dropping out of sight for a few days at a time, and because of this, investigators initially believed she and Teresa had run away from home. Teresa had no history as a runaway, and her family never believed she had done that. Her family described her as a very timid, shy young girl who wasn't having problems at home and wouldn't have gone anywhere with someone she didn't know. Investigators no longer believe the pair left of their own volition. Teresa's mother is still alive and living in the area, as are many of her siblings, and they have never stopped looking for her. She was a student at Stanley Switlick Elementary School in 1974 and lived with her family on 92nd Street. The police file for Teresa and Cynthia was destroyed in a fire sometime after they vanished. Both cases remain unsolved.
Number 7.
Paul was visiting family members in Miami, Florida when he disappeared on August 30, 1976. He called his mother and asked permission to return home to Connecticut, and she sent an uncle to pick him up. By the time his uncle arrived to meet him, however, Paul had vanished. He was last seen walking on Bird Road near 112th Avenue in Miami, headed for a 7-Eleven store. He never actually arrived at the store, however. Paul's parents were divorced at the time of his disappearance. He has a prior history as a runaway. In October 1975, while he and his mother were living in Florida, he left home and hitchhiked to Connecticut to see his father, who was sick and in the hospital. Paul's father died at Christmas that year, and Paul, his mother and his 3 siblings moved back to Connecticut. They lived on Prospect Street in East Hartford. Investigators believe that after his 1976 disappearance, Paul may have initially tried to go back to Connecticut like he had done before, but he never made it there and has never been heard from again. His family believes he may have been abducted while attempting to hitchhike to Connecticut. Few details are available in Paul's case. The original investigative CASA file was lost, and authorities have opened another decades after his disappearance. Both Florida and Connecticut police are investigating his case. Some agencies give the date of Paul's disappearance as August 13, 1976.